Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne Goins with the World News. Now it's time for our weekly deep dive into UK real estate. For more, here's Bloomberg's Sandra Kilhoff with Property Portfolio. Sandra, this week you're looking at later life living. Retirement homes, do they call them that anymore?
Well, really, Caroline, the sector is really called later living. And it's what's really interesting about it is that in the next 5 years, we are going to see the number of private senior rental properties, so retirement villages, as you very rightly say, in the UK are actually going to surge 160%. So that's quite a whopping number. So we've got about 5,000 of these types of properties right now, but there will be more than 13,000 of them by 2024. So that's really a quite unique investment opportunity. So for more, I am very pleased to be joined by Phil Bayliss, CEO of Later Living at Legal & General and chairman at Guild Living. Phil, you say this pandemic is going to turbocharge the delivery of retirement villages in Britain, but I wonder how that works when we've seen construction be somewhat delayed by the virus.
Morning, Sandra. The pandemic certainly has delayed construction activity across the board, really. But, is retirement communities more or less relevant? After the pandemic, everything we're seeing is absolutely more relevant. It may come as a surprise, but the infection levels in retirement communities have been incredibly low, much lower than society, and certainly much lower than we've seen in care homes. People are having great health outcomes, and it's been shown, where you live and the people you're around directly translate to your own health, happiness, and well-being, which we're all experiencing in lockdown.
But it's interesting what you say there, Phil, because what comes with a private senior rental property is, of course, also the cost of it as well. And I do wonder, when you're seeing a pandemic that's going to impact the economy as much as this is, we're facing the biggest recession in about 300 years here in the UK. Is it really feasible to suggest that many people will want to pay that money or be able to pay that money to stay in retirement villages?
Legal & General and Inspired Villages, which I'm the chairman of, also we've done research historically showing 12 million over 65s in the UK and about 3 million are actively looking to be worth a little less, although the latest house price forecast suggests that's worth more at the moment. So that's an incredible investment opportunity to have a £1 trillion worth of housing wealth to provide a relevant housing solution for. And that's right now. Over 80s in the UK is set to double in the next 20 years.
But I do have to ask about that, though, because this demographic time bomb that some people have called it, it's not as concerning as initially said, at least according to the Office for National Statistics, because they've found that those big post-war cohorts are kind of now dying out. And that means that there's actually 4.3 million fewer older people with those life expectancies of 15 years or more that would kind of be living in that type of retirement home than previously forecast. So I wondered, your estimates for this, your suggestion that this is going to be such a big investment going forward, is that accurate in accordance with the fact that we're seeing these demographic changes?
Yeah, so, in terms of supply and demand side dynamics compared to Australia and the US and New Zealand and elsewhere where this is mature. So you've got about 3 million people looking to downsize, and we're delivering about 7,000 units per annum. So it's a long way short of matching supply with demand out in the market. So we're seeing terrific inquiries, and this is about a market opportunity, creating a platform that can go and deliver as much age-appropriate housing across the country as possible to suit everyone's needs. And interestingly, a good, thriving housing market in general across all of society, where we all live in housing that is appropriate to our own needs us all to be moving through and living in properties that suit our needs. There's 6 million unoccupied bedrooms in the UK, which is the equivalent of 20 years worth of housing supply. We need to make better use of our existing housing supply as well as building appropriate housing for the future.
So in that sense, later living potentially a solution to the housing crisis, really, that the UK is facing. Phil, I find that incredibly interesting. Something I'm also want to ask you about is you expect residential investment as an overall category to be boosted by about £42 billion in the coming years. About 2/3 of that current capital is committed already. Why is this sector so popular? I mean, you say it's an interesting investment, but what is it that really gives that good return for investors?
A lot of it goes back to the overall macro dynamics around the demand, aging society, and thinking about how, as a society, we're going to thrive potentially in the long term as we age, and how we're going to do that and where we live is going to be a key component of that. Investors are seeing that, and 50% of private wealth in the UK is in the over 50, over 60 bracket, and so there's a lot of capital. The target market is typically wealthy and underserved. So historically, not much attention paid to compared to the likes of other mature developed markets that have 5 to 10% of retirees living in these. In the UK, it's 1/10 that.
And Legal and General yourself investing about £26 billion into economically and socially useful assets. What type of return, what type of yield are you expecting to get out of this?
Yeah, so we're focused on inclusive capitalism, so investing people's money for people's benefit, and our focus is on long-term cash flows that match a lot of our pension needs. In terms of yield profile, if you're renting one of these properties, you can expect to get a yield on costs of anywhere between 5 and 8%, depending on the location through the UK.
Okay, so really an interesting level of return there on your investment, Phil. Finally, I just want to get your take. Like, is this an outlook that you expect to remain in place for the long term as we see demographic changes, or is it more of a short-term, medium-term type of investment?
It's certainly for the long term, and looking across the sector, it requires a long-term business plan to do this properly. The raw commodity of this is getting land with planning permission to build the retirement communities, and to do that takes time, and then selling and operating these schemes in perpetuity is definitely a long-term proposition. So we're here because we're excited about the very long-term nature of the demand supply imbalance, and what matters most is improving people's lives, and the people that live there thriving.
And Phil, you're certainly right about the issue of acquiring the land for it. I've actually seen 3 retirement villages planned in my local area on plots of land there. So certainly is something that is growing in interest. Thank you so much. That was Phil Bayliss, CEO of Later Living at Legal and General. Of course, you can hear much more from Property Portfolio by checking out our podcast page on Bloomberg.com. This is Bloomberg.